A lot of times we hear that rejection is protection. And sure enough, this is true. But God also gave me a different message about rejection. He said that rejection is redirection as well sometimes. So, an outline of this is the story of Jonah. Jonah was told by God to go to Nineveh and forewarn the people that if they continue to live in sin, then he would recompense upon them the punishment for their sins. Jonah did not want to go to the Ninevites and tell them the message that God had given them because he was afraid of the backlash that would come from him giving them bad news, something they didn't want to hear. So Jonah decided to be disobedient and go a different direction. He went and put himself on a ship with a whole bunch of other people to go somewhere that God did not tell him to go. So what ended up happening is that a storm was threatening to overturn the ship. And everybody was trying to figure out, okay, why is God angry at us? Everybody pray to your gods and tell them to calm this storm. And so they ended up finding out, narrowing things down, and found out that Jonah was the reason why the storm was hitting the ship and that it was going to be overturned. So they threw Jonah overboard and the storm calmed down after that. Can you imagine what it would have been like to be Jonah? Jonah was being rejected by his circumstances. He was being thrown off of a ship that he put himself on. But look at the reasons why that happened. Basically, Jonah was somewhere where God did not want him to be. He was doing something God didn't want him to do. So the rejection of the people on that ship to throw him overboard was actually God's way of saying, no, Jonah, that's not what I asked you to do. So it was a redirection. And even though he had to sit in the belly of a whale for a while and contemplate on what God wanted him to do, I think that's because of his pride. Sometimes God will put us in the belly of a whale for a while just so that he can stagnate us and tell us to sit down and listen and humble ourselves before him so he can tell us what he wanted us to do and get us to go ahead and yield and submit to his will because he knows what's best for us. He wouldn't have sent Jonah to Nineveh with a message if he had planned on not covering Jonah and making sure that he would be safe and that there were going to be results out of what he did. The Ninevites ended up saving their lives by repenting because of Jonah's message. And that's the exact reason why God sent him. But for a minute, he didn't trust God. And so he went in a different direction. He rebelled against God. And he ended up being rejected by those circumstances. So I say that to say this. If a situation is, you feel like that there's a lot of closed doors and you're being rejected by circumstances or things are not exactly going the way that you want, God is saying that sometimes this is not just a protection, but also see it as a redirection. God may be sitting you down because he's saying, look, I told you I wanted you to go this way. You may have to contemplate and meditate and remember a time when you were actually connected to God and he said, hey, I want you to do this. And for whatever reason, it never got done. And you may have had doubt in your mind. You may have been fearful. You may have thought that, oh, no, I can't do that, or something along those lines that kind of made you scope out your own journey instead of going the direction God wanted you to go. And now that you're a certain way down that journey, you're realizing that those doors are not opening for you. Well, so he wants us to contemplate what it is in this time that we've ignored, things that he's told us to do and the direction that he's told us to go, that we've kind of taken detours because of our own stuff. You know what I mean? Our own insecurities, fears, and doubts and things of that matter. So he wants us to look at that because the doors that are meant to open, nobody can close through witchcraft, through networking or anything like that. There's nothing that anybody can do to close a door that God has opened. So if you're standing at a door and it's not opening for you, then it might not be the right door. So the message is that rejection is not only protection, but sometimes redirection.